Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, November 5th edition of the MMAOB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Merton, and I'll be taking you guys through the latest in the world of mixed martial arts. Got a pretty jam-packed show today, guys. I'll be doing it solo, of course. Talk about Bellator 251. We'll be previewing that card for tonight, recapping Dana White's Contender Series 34 from last night. There's some updates to this weekend's UFC card. We actually got a fight added. Usually we get fights subtracted. We actually got a fight added. There's a bunch of new fight announcements, some really big fights coming up, and some other news and stuff. So it's going to be a jam-packed show. I just want to plug Tuesday's podcast that I did with Cole Shelton. We broke down the entirety of UFC on ESPN Plus 40, aka UFC Vegas 13. So definitely check that out. Like I said, there's one extra fight that I'll be previewing today. But I want to start with Bellator here. Now, the first thing I want to do, actually, before I do anything here, I want to plug MMAOddsbreaker.com because that's the home of the podcast, and I got to start give him some more love here. So let's go to MMA Oddsbreaker here. There we go. Yeah, so there's the homepage, guys. So we obviously have the podcast going on, but I want to highlight a few things. First off, I have my full betting breakdown for Thiago Santos, Glover Teixeira. So I wrote that. It's right there if you want to read that. AJ's Bets has got a podcast up here. Going down a little bit more, I got Bellator opening odds, so definitely check that out. These opening odds articles, I think, really help, especially when you're looking, trying to compare Bellator and the UFC, and to the opening odds to the current odds. So definitely do that. I post it every week. Also Contender Series, but it's already done. So definitely check it out, MMAOddsbreaker.com. Just wanted to give those guys some love there. So next thing I want to talk about here, the odds for this card. Let's go here. All right, share screen. Let's go to Bellator 251. I'll start with Bellator, like I said. So here's the card over at Topology. And I'm going to pull the odds up. I'm just using best fight odds. We'll just use whatever Dimes has. So let's start with the bottom here, work our way up. And according to Topology, the first fight is a women's strawweight bout between Sumiko Inaba and Jessica Ruiz. And according to best fight odds, right now we have Inaba minus 545, Ruiz plus 395. And my first inclination is, like, how do you bet this fight, guys? Seriously. So Inaba 6-1 amateur record. Again, no pro fights, 29 years old, Hawaiian fighter, no pro fights. And I understand that someone's going to win, someone's going to lose, so there's money to be made here, but I don't see much of an edge when someone doesn't have any pro fights. Now, you look at her amateur experience, she fought for Tough Enough, which a lot of amateur fighters go through. But again, you know, the level of competition low here, 0-0, 2-0, 0-0, 1-0, 6-2, 4-0, 4-3. I mean, it's not bad, but you know, to be fair to her, she's been fighting amateur 6 years, so it's time she turned pro. But again, I just have a hard time being too confident putting actual money on fighters that don't have pro fights. Now, Ruiz does have one pro fight, 0-1. As you can see, boxing background, 36 years old. So to me, like, that's almost an automatic fade there. And she had her one fight 2 years ago in Bellator, got knocked out by Jennifer Chang, another 0-0 fighter. You look at her amateur experience, 2-1. Now, I understand that the odds probably didn't open as high as they should have, because you look at the opening odds, it was minus 260 for Inaba and plus 200 for Ruiz, and clearly the opener was too low because Inaba is a massive favorite here. But yeah, she probably does win. But seriously, guys, don't bet on these kind of fights. Like, it's not worth it. Let's go to the next fight here. My pick's Inaba, by the way, but I'm like, again, minus 545 and some fighter doesn't have a pro fight. Are you kidding me, guys? Seriously. I don't understand how that line gets steamed. Now, here's another fight. Same thing with, you know, it's not a bad thing to have these guys with minimal experience making their debuts. Like, they have to debut somewhere. There's not many shows, obviously, putting on shows right now during COVID-19 pandemic, so it's good that Bellator is doing that. But again, betting is different than just watching a fight and enjoying it. Now, let's start with this fight here. At 135 pounds, we have Jalen Bates taking on Joe Supino. It's an amateur. It's actually a pro fight, but they're two amateurs, obviously, making their debuts. 135 pounds. Right now, Bates, according to best fight odds, minus 650, Supino plus 440. And again, it's a situation, guys, where the line opened at minus 135, and now this guy's minus 650. So obviously he's being steamed up. And you look at Jalen Bates, again, no pro fights, but 9-0 amateur record. And I guess that's what people are betting this off of, basing their bets off of. There's some things you like about this guy. Obviously, 23, it's young, 5'9", so good height there for this division. But again, no pro fights. He has been destroying guys on the amateur circuit, so that's definitely something to keep notice. And I guess that's, again, why people are betting this guy up. But again, when you don't have a pro fight, when you don't have a body of work in the pro leagues, I just find it hard to go crazy on it. So next up, we have Supino here, 6-2 record, 26 years old. Again, no pro fights for this guy, and he does have quite a few wins, but he also has a couple losses. He has been fighting for a couple of decent promotions, obviously, like Ring of Combat, Dead Serious. Those are okay promotions, but for the regional scene, but still no pro fights. My pick, again, would be Bates. From what I've seen, he's impressive, but again, no pro fights, and you can't lay minus 650 on an unknown fighter. It's not worth it, guys, seriously. Next up, we have this one, Ali Zebian against Pinaki Zimmerman. So right now we have Ali Zebian minus 410 and Zimmerman plus 315. Once again, two guys that I don't think a lot of people have heard of, and this line just keeps climbing up. So we've got this guy here, Ali Zebian, 4-2 record, 26 years old. Looking at his pro record, he's fought in Bellator once. He lost last year. You know what? To be fair to this guy, he's been fighting a lot, which is nice to see. He just fought last month in LFA. So someone the UFC might have had their eye on, and Bellator snatched him up here. Definitely, not bad experience here fighting for Cage Titans LFA, but again, the level of competition not that great. 1-0, 3-0, 1-5, just not great fighters. And he lost his last fight too. It was a month ago, so he's fresh, obviously, but that bothers me. And you look at his amateur record; he has quite a few losses as an amateur too. So I'm not really sure why this guy is such a big favorite here. He's taking on this guy, Pinaki Zimmerman, 5'4", very unique name. I don't know anyone with that name. They call him the Happy Ninja. This guy, I believe, is making his Bellator debut, yes, but he has fought for a couple of promotions that were notable, like Shogun Fights, Baltimore-based promotion. He fought for that on that card, the Jonathan Ogden Foundation, former Baltimore Raven player, and then obviously King of the Cage, CFFC. So this guy's got a decent amount of experience, obviously, and he just fought recently too. But 5-4 and run record is not good. My pick again is going to be the favorite here. I'll take Zebian, but again, how could you lay minus 410 on a guy that most people probably haven't even seen fight? I don't even think it's worth it. Now, I do think a lot of people will probably parlay all three of those guys and, hope for the best. And it's definitely possible they could all win, but, I'm not sure about that. It's risky. It's definitely risky. When you haven't seen these guys fight, we're basing it just off Tapology records. It's very hard to be confident. Now, the next fight here, this is one I'm pretty confident in. Janae Harding against Jessie Meal, women's 145. Janae Harding right now is Meal is of the favorite here, minus 145, and Harding plus 115. I'm a little surprised by that. So Harding, a lot of hype for her. Obviously, a very attractive girl, and her record's not great, 5-4, but she's got a lot of experience in kickboxing, and she's making her name known in MMA. Does have a decent amount of experience. Like for someone that doesn't have many fights, only 9 fights. She's fought like Jessica Rose Clark, Arlene Blencoe, Sinead Kavanagh, so Amanda Bell. I mean, these are some decent, notable names, I guess, of the women's MMA scene. So not bad, but again, not a lot of success. And coming off a knockout loss in her last fight, has not fought MMA fight in over a year. So we're not over a year, but just about a year, almost 365 days, 362 days. So that's obviously a worry here. Meal, though, coming off, she's 9-4, by the way. She's coming off this loss to Julia Budd. She just got owned in that fight. To be fair to her, I mean, that's a tough matchup. Julia Budd's a beast, but overall, I don't know. I wasn't too impressed by that. Now, throughout her career, I think she's someone who's a little bit underrated. Got some decent wins here, like Toledo Noguera, Elizabeth Phillips. Not bad wins, but again, how could you be too confident in this fight? I was actually leaning a little bit towards the dog here, guys, in Harding a little bit. I think she can maybe outstrike Meal, but again, it's not one that I'm super excited to bet on by any means. There's a couple fights coming up though that I do like. Next up, we have Julius Anglickas against Alex Polizzi. Right now, we have minus 130 for Anglickas, Polizzi plus 100, so even money there. Line open as a pick'em, so line hasn't shifted much. And right now, Anglickas is a very small favorite. Anglickas, you guys might remember him from Contender Series, 8-1 record, 29-year-old fighter. He actually won his fight in Contender Series last year, and he won by submission, and the UFC passed on him. Now, it wasn't the greatest performance. He did win the fight late in the third round by stoppage, but still, I thought he looked okay. And, for a guy that's on a 7-fight win streak, you think the UFC would have been interested in taking him. So they passed on him, and he went to Bellator and beat Jordan Young in his debut. That's a nice win. And now he takes on Polizzi, who's a pretty good prospect too, at 7-0. This is a really good fight, actually, I think. Alex Easy Polizzi, and he's coming off a nice win over Rafael Carvalho in his last fight, and he's got a couple other notable wins in his career over Daniel Jolly, a former UFC fighter. So, I mean, this is a good fight, guys. This is one of the better fights on the card, in my opinion. Definitely another fight that could go either way, but I'm kind of leaning towards Polizzi a little bit, to be honest with you. The way he beat Carvalho was very impressive, in my opinion, and looking through this guy's record, never lost. He's got some nice wins. It's just amazing how fast these guys are getting better. Like, he's only been pro for 2 years, and he's already beating some pretty good guys like Rafael Carvalho, former Bellator champion, who's recently been released. But still, close fight, but I lean a little bit towards the dog there in Polizzi. Next up, we have a lightweight bout between Bryce Logan and Georgi Karakhanyan. And right now we have Bryce Logan minus 160, Karakhanyan plus 130. So this line actually flipped because Karakhanyan opened as a small favorite at minus 160 plus 130 for Bryce Logan. So the line flipped, basically did a full 180. And right now, Logan's a slight favorite. And, let's start with Logan here, actually. And Logan, 12-4 record. And you look at his career stats here, 30 years old, 5'9", physical stats. And then you look at his record. He's fought in Bellator. He's fought in LFA. He's on a 3-fight win streak. I mean, there's definitely some stuff to like about this guy for sure. But I don't think his level competition's been great. I mean, he's fought a couple of good fighters like Grant Dawson, Tay Edwards. So some former UFC guys. And obviously Dawson's still in the UFC. But I don't know, like the last couple wins, yeah, he's winning decisions, but the last 6 wins by decision, I don't like that. I like guys that are finishing fights, especially in the regional scene. But still, 3-fight win streak coming into Bellator, that's not bad. And then Karakhanyan here, wealth of experience, 29-11-1. He's been around for a long time. He's 35 now, which he's getting up there in age. And he's coming off the loss to Miles Jury. He lost 3 of his last 4, but still a very, very experienced guy. And Karakhanyan, man, you can never count him out of a fight. Having said that, I can definitely see why people are fading him here. You look at his recent run, it's just not that good. A lot of losses here, guys. He's been stopped he's been stopped once. He's still tough. He's still durable. I like Karakhanyan. It's a shame this guy was never in the UFC, I think. At one point in time, he was a very good featherweight, but, it's a tough matchup for him. I leans a little bit towards Logan here, but again, it's a close fight, and I can see why the line flipped, though. I will say that. I think that the line probably should have been closer to like a pick-em at open. Next up, we have a really interesting fight here at 170. Derek Anderson against Achilles Mota. I like this fight. Derek Anderson minus 280, Achilles Mota plus 220. So Derek Anderson, a guy who's been around for a long time in Bellator, 16-3 record in his career, 30 years old. He's been around for a long time. He's been around Bellator since 2013. And you look at some of the wins he's had in Bellator. Patricky Pitbull beat him twice, Brandon Gertz, Sad Awad. So some decent wins. And last 2 fights beats Guilherme Bomba and Zach Busha. He is coming off a layoff, which is not good, over a year, 13-month layoff. But this is a guy with a lot of experience. And he was supposed to fight last month against Paul Daly, and Daly missed weight, and the fight got canceled. So he should be in good shape for this fight. You hope the double weight cut doesn't hurt him. Takes on Achilles Mota here, a guy who's I'm kind of interested in, 12-1 record, 30 years old, a guy that's he's a Teixeira MMA product, so he's training with Glover, which is nice to see because Glover's fighting this weekend, Danbury, Connecticut. So like to see that. You look at this guy's record, and a guy who's been around for 7 years now, since 2013, and he's fought for a couple decent promotions like Brave, LFA, and most recently Bellator, where he got a great win in his Bellator debut against Nando Malo, knocking him out with leg kicks in the 3rd round, just finishing a guy that was a really top prospect. So that's a nice win. Does have the loss here to Austin Hubbard, but Hubbard's a UFC caliber fighter, man. Hubbard's a legitimate fighter in this division. So that's not a bad loss. And look where it happened. 5th round, 4:45 the 5th round. So this is a guy who's a dangerous fighter. He showed that the kicks are dangerous. He showed in this fight against Bobby Lee, who's a good prospect, that he's got guillotine choke and some submissions. And look at this win. Akihiro Gono knocked him out. So I know Gono is an old guy now. It's not a great win on paper, but it's not bad. It's not that bad. So, Derek Anderson's good, but he's kind of consistent in my opinion. You look at his resume, and it's kind of like win-loss, and he'll win 2, lose 1. I think he's due for a loss here. And I like Achilles Mota, man, honestly. I think he can win this fight. So I'm going to take Achilles Mota here at plus 220. I actually think there's value in this, potentially for a small play. You can't go crazy on it by any means, but I do think he wins this fight, guys. I think he's just going to be the better striker here and the better overall fighter. So I'm going to take Achilles Mota, and it should be a close fight, but I do think he can edge it out, win the decision here. So that's my pick at plus 220. Next up, we have Austin Vanderford against Vinicius de Jesus. This is a middleweight fight. Vanderford was supposed to fight Chris Curtis, who unfortunately got COVID-19, had to be removed from the card. So now we have Vanderford minus 435, de Jesus plus 325, and I expect Vanderford to be a very popular parlay piece tonight. 9-0 record, and Paige Van Zandt's husband, 30 years old, and the guy's a beast. Another guy that the UFC passed on. I don't know why. He had a really nice performance here against Angelo Trevino in his 5th fight, and they passed on him, and since then he's 4-0. So he's looked good, and he's got good ground game. He's got some striking. I mean, it's not great, but it's coming along. But his ground game's good. His wrestling's good. Good cardio. The guy's a solid fighter, man. So I like Austin Vanderford. And I know a lot of people, they don't really like him because I think there are a lot of people are haters, to be completely honest with you. But I actually like this guy. I think he's a pretty good fighter. Takes on Vinicius de Jesus, and this is a guy. Great, first off, great nickname, Brazilian Bad Boy, great nickname. 9-3 record, but a guy that I've heard quite a bit of good things about. 30-year-old fighter, from the northeastern regional scene here in the States. Now, he has fought Bellator a bunch of times. He actually fought Joaquin Buckley in Bellator, which is crazy because I don't think anyone remembers that fight. Now we all know Buckley from the UFC and that crazy kick he landed. But Buckley and him did fight 3 years ago, and he just lost a split. Since then, he's 5-1. He lost his last fight to Jalil Willis, who's a good prospect, so no shame in that. But I think this is a really good sign for Bellator. But, this guy is taking on short notice, and Vanderford's an absolute monster. So I like Vanderford here quite a bit. I do think he probably gets a finish. Don't think there's odds. Fight doesn't go the distance is -140. You could potentially play that. That's definitely something to be interested in. I think he finishes his fight. So the fight ending inside the distance, I should say, is -140. I think Vanderford inside distance might be plus money. That's kind of how I'm leaning here. I think he probably gets a submission or potentially a ground and pound. But you know what? He hasn't been finished in MMA, so he is durable. I'm really high on Vanderford, and I do think he can finish this fight. So that's my pick. Next up, co-main event, Terrell Fortune against Sade Salwa. Terrell Fortune, 8-1 record, 30 years old. This is a guy right now, my 685 favorite, but remember, he lost his fight against Tim Johnson. He closed at -900 and lost that fight, got KO'd. And the Jack May fight closed at -714. It was a no contest due to low blow. So this is a guy that, yes, he's -685 right now, and that just shows you that the sports books and every bettor out there thinks he's going to destroy this guy. But I'm not convinced, man. I mean, yes, he's looked really good for most of his Bellator career, but most of the guys he beat weren't that good. And when he finally fought someone decent, Tim Johnson got KO'd in the first round. So I'm not as sold on him as I was a year ago, especially since that Johnson fight. And the Jack May fight, I mean, that can happen, so that sucks. But the Johnson fight worries me a lot. Now, you look at this guy, Salma, 6-1 record, 27 years old. He's a Coconut Creek guy, so ATT guy. Look at his record. He lost his first fight to Steve Mowry, who's a really top prospect in Bellator right now, and the guy shooting in the UFC. I don't know why they passed on him, and since then he's won 6 straight fights. So I got to be honest, guys. Like I don't know why the line is crazy like this. I think Salma can win. So this to me is dog or pass. Plus 455 in the dog. I'd rather take the dog here. It would just be a punt though if I did take it. So Fortune probably wins. He probably takes him down, ground pounds this guy, and beats him like that. But I'm not convinced, man. So plus 435, you could take a small shot on Sade Salma, but it's definitely dog or pass regardless. You can't lay my 685 on Terrell Fortune. And finally, main event of the evening, Melvin Manhoef against Corey Anderson. Another squash match according to the betting odds. -550 for Corey Anderson and plus 400 for Melvin Manhoef. And to me, this is definitely a squash match too. You look at Corey Anderson, 13-5 record, not amazing, but he's only 31 and he's still getting better, and he's blessed with physical tools, 6'3", 79-inch reach. You gotta love that. And some of his wins in the UFC were fantastic. He beat Glover. He beat him for 3 rounds, wrestled him. He knocked out Johnny Walker. He beat Latifi. Like, those are good wins. Blachowicz, he beat him. And it was 5 years ago. But still, he's got a win over the current UFC champ. I mean, that's a nice win, right? So this is a guy that he's been inconsistent. His chin's not great. Obviously, we know he's been KO'd a few times. 1, 2, 3, and then 4 to John Vellante. He's been knocked out 4 times in the UFC. He wasn't the most exciting guy at times. He had a lot of wrestling-based decisions. But still, I was surprised to let him go, because he was a top 5 guy. So this is his Bellator debut. He takes a Manhoef here, and this looks like a squash match, guys. And I know, again, Corey's coming off the knockout loss. His chin's not great, but Melvin, and you got to love Melvin. I mean, I respect the guy a lot. He's been around a long time, 32-14-1 record. So he's proven he can knock guys out and beat them, but 44 years old. It just stands out like a sore thumb. And again, look at this, 6'3" to 5'8", 71-inch reach, 79. This is a squash match, guys. Yes, Melvin Manhoef could catch Corey Anderson and knock him out. Definitely a possibility, because he does have crazy knockout power, but I'm not betting on that. I think Corey Anderson beats him up pretty good. Either a decision, a dominant decision, like where it's maybe 30-26, where he just takes him down, beats him up, or Corey Anderson gets submission or a ground and pound stoppage, because Manhoef probably gasses out here too. So yeah, Corey Anderson will dominate this fight, in my opinion. I mean, I think everyone agrees with that. Look at the betting odds. Melvin Manhoef, if anything, you take Corey Anderson, you hedge on Manhoef by KO. That's the only way he can win this fight, probably in the first round before he gasses. But yes, I do like Corey Anderson here, guys, and it's hard not to like the guy. I mean, again, you just look what he did through his career. He's a very, very good fighter. So yeah, Corey Anderson by inside the distance. Now, let's take a look what else we got here. I need to preview the one fight that I missed on the UFC card for this Sunday. So we're going to go to best fight odds now. Actually, sorry, we're going to stick with Tapology. But I'm going to pull this up here. So UFC Fight Night. And we added this fight right here. Gustavo Lopez against Anthony Birchak. So that's a new fight to this card. And it just got booked, like, I think it was after we did the podcast on Tuesday, unfortunately. So let's break down this fight, guys. And right now, I should have mentioned, opening odds had Birchak -155, Gustavo Lopez +125. Right now, it's closer, -125 for Birchak, +105 for Lopez, who was supposed to fight in this card originally against Felipe Corrales, who got COVID-19. So let's start with Birchak here. He is the favorite. Birchak making his return to the UFC, 15-6 record. And you got to love Anthony Birchak, man. This is a guy that really shouldn't have been cut the first time around. He kind of got screwed. He had a tough run. You look at who he fought. He fought Ian Antwistle. He beat him, or he lost to him. He beat Joe Soto, lost to Thompson, beat Daniel Lopez, and then got cut. It was a contract dispute. I don't know what happened. He just obviously had to disagree with the matchmakers, and they let him go after his 4-fight deal. And since then, he hasn't looked great. You know, he's 2-3. So he lost 3 straight fights in Ryzen. To be honest, you know, some tough fighters there. Kawajiri and these guys, Moon and Otsuka, they've picked up some nice wins over there on the Asian regional scene. But since then, he's got 2 wins in Kabachi over Adam Martinez, 5-1, and Eric Radley, 5-5, but hasn't fought in a year. He did have a grappling match recently. I do like Anthony Birchak. I just question him being a favorite here on such short notice, because you look at Gustavo Lopez, 11-5, and he's an extreme couture product, 31 years old. So matches up pretty well, and a little bit younger too. Now, I know he lost to Merab, and that's not a bad loss. And yes, he did lose that fight. He showed some skills in that fight, though. His takedown defense wasn't terrible, and he showed some decent striking skills. And you look through his record, and he's got some nice wins over in Kabachi, like Von Fluchoke. So he's got some skills. Now, and you look at his losses, too. Andre Ewell and John Castaneda are both in the UFC. Those aren't bad losses. Some of the other ones you probably want to have back. But overall, I think this is a situation where it looks like people are just kind of, you know, looking at his record and saying it's not great and he hasn't fought great competition. But again, Birchak's taking this fight on like 2 days' notice, guys, and he's a favorite. I don't think I agree with that. So I'm actually going to pick Gustavo Lopez. I think he can win a decision here. It's going to be a close fight, but I lean towards the dog here. So that'd be my pick. And again, all the rest of my picks for that card, you can go back and watch UFC or the UFC preview from Tuesday. Now, I do want to talk about Contender Series from last night. I'm just going to find it in Topology here. Contender Series 2020. Let's go to it. It was a great card last night, guys. We got to talk about this one. Week 8. Okay, so let's start with this. Carlos Ulberg, main event. He knocked out Bruno Oliveira. Looked incredible. Got signed to the UFC contract. All 4 fighters that won got signed. I agree with 3 of them. I don't know what the 4th one, but yeah, Carlos Ulberg looked amazing in this fight, and a guy that the UFC is high on, a guy that Israel Adesanya is hyping up like crazy, and everyone seems to really like this guy. I think he's going to be a big star. Like Dana White was like, you know, this guy, look how marketable this kid is. He's a good-looking kid. He can fight. So he was good, man, and he was a big favorite to win the fight. All the favorites won on this card, by the way. He was -240, but he looked great. Now, this fight, holy shit, what a knockout. Ignacio Bahamondes against Edson Gomez. Just an absolutely brutal front kick. We actually had 2 front kicks on this card, which is insane. So Anderson Silva retires. He's like the master of the front kick, the one with the Vitor Belfort fight, UFC 126. We had 2 of them on this card. Pretty incredible. So, yeah, Bahamondes looked amazing. He got signed. Gomez looked okay in this fight. He just gassed out, and he looked a little small. Maybe he could lose some weight, go to 155. I feel bad for guys like this, man. He's like, you know, he's got a full-time job. He's not training full-time. He wants to train full-time. He can't. If he did train full-time, he could probably drop a weight class and be a better fighter. But that's just the reality of the situation for a lot of people. You know, he's a guy that has a family, and I don't know if he'll be in the UFC, but I didn't think he was that bad. But Bahamondes is a special talent, man. He looked incredible in this fight. I'm very excited to see this kid going forward. What a knockout, man. And, of course, he got signed. Another guy who looked incredible, Luis Saldana, just absolutely tooled Vince Murdoch here. And, again, Vince Murdoch, I told you guys to fade him, you know, coming off that brain injury. You just can't pick a guy like that to win, unfortunately. It's a great story, but I don't think he'll make it to the UFC, unfortunately. I think he's going to fall a little short. And, you know, I hate to say that because, again, this kid's chasing his dreams, and he battled through a lot to get here. But I think this showed his level. And Luis Saldana, clearly a much more polished fighter. And, you know, his record's not great, 14-6, but he looked amazing in this fight. His striking is really good. And the finish was amazing. If you guys missed it, go back and watch both these finishes. Actually, all 4 of the finishes, but especially the 2 knockouts and the main event. But, man, Saldana landed 2 front kicks in this combination sequence and then knocked him out with some punches. So, incredible performance, and absolutely gets a contract. And finally, Jared Vanderaa defeats Harry Hunsucker, a guy who took the fight in 4 days short notice. So, super short notice, and not a great fight, a really sloppy fight, in my opinion. Hunsucker looked okay early on. He actually landed a lot of really good shots on Vanderaa. I saw some people joking on Twitter that it was like the Homer Simpson defense, which I think is hilarious because it really was like that. So Hunsucker ran out of gas. Again, he took the fight on 4 days' notice, and he made Dana White know that because he kept saying, I took it on 4 days' notice. I don't think Dana cared, by the way. And he talked about the post-fight presser, and it seemed like he just kind of shrugged his shoulders about it. But Vanderaa gets the win here. Eventually, Hunsucker gassed after 3 minutes. Vanderaa basically hit him with some shots, and this guy covered up, and it was a TKO loss. It was kind of a bad, ugly, just ending to the fight. I wouldn't have signed Jared Vanderaa. He didn't look like a UFC fighter. Now, I will say, I liked his post-fight interview. The guy seemed like a super cool dude. He seemed like a down-to-earth guy. I like that. And I think that the personality definitely played a factor. Also, the fact he's a heavyweight. And he did call out Sergey Spivak, a guy who a lot of us don't really want to watch in the UFC. So maybe he goes out there and knocks out Spivak with ground and pound and gets him out of the UFC roster. But overall, I just wasn't impressed. He took a lot of shots from a guy who didn't look that great himself. And, yeah, he did survive it. But, 11-4, he's a guy that I think will probably have a couple of fights and get cut. I just don't see a real ceiling for this guy in the UFC. Saldana, I think, will be around the 145 division for a couple years. Bahamondes looked special, though. I mean, that's the guy that definitely stood out. And, of course, Ulberg at 205. We need 205ers, so he looked amazing. Hey, I'm going to call my friend Eduardo Flores. Hey, Eduardo. Says, good morning. First of all, do you think it's fair Oliveira deserves someone higher ranked than Dariush? Yeah, I think this is a good time to switch to the news because I am done with Contender Series. So, overall, like I said, guys, a fantastic card. Let me just pull something up here. There we go. So, we'll go to bjpen.com. That's my home. Besides MMA Oddsbreaker, and we got a lot of news. But one of the articles I did write yesterday was about Neal Dariush, and he wants to fight Charles Oliveira again. So this is a good segue to the news. Now, yeah, I think Oliveira, if you look at the rankings, Eduardo, he's ranked higher. He's ranked number 7 right now. But still, I mean, you look at some of the guys Oliveira's beaten, they're not like amazing fighters. Like he doesn't really have like a marquee win during the 7-fight win streak. So he wants a title shot, and I'd like to see him fight for the belt because I think he's an interesting guy to fight Khabib. I mean, yeah, Khabib probably just knocks out Oliveira with ground and pound. I think it probably play out like the Paul Felder fight, but Charles Oliveira's got that ground game where he can, if Khabib wants to play in the ground with him and prove his point, he's a guy that can make it interesting. Again, I don't see that fight happening. I don't think Khabib would come back to fight Charles Oliveira, but he's a guy that's definitely intriguing just because of his style. But, again, the 7 wins aren't really that impressive. Dariush is 5 straight wins. He's a little bit lower ranked. I think he's 10th right now. But if anything, like his wins might be a little better. Both guys aren't really beating top 15 guys, but they both have win streaks. I think it's a great fight between 2 guys with excellent ground games, and I'd like to see the fight. So hopefully the UFC can book that one. But you're saying that, I see what you're saying. He's saying Gillespie's teases fight news soon. I mean, Gillespie against either of these guys makes sense too. Another guy would be Kevin Lee. Let's pull the rankings up for a sec. And the rankings suck, but they're just a good thing to like base just some easy matchmaking off of. So again, you look at Dubronx. He's actually ranked number 6, I should have said. So he's ranked 6. Dariush 11. I can see why Dubronx wants a guy like he probably wants Dan Hooker, a guy who's available. That's probably the fight he wants, or maybe Ferguson or Gaethje. I mean, he really wants title shot, but he was not going to get it because again, you look at who Oliveira's beaten guys, and yes, he has all these wins, but Kevin Lee win was a good win, but Jared Gordon, Nick Lentz, it's okay win. He knocked him out. It was nice, but David Tamer, Jim Miller, Christos Giagos, like really, it's just a title shot worthy run. And he got knocked out by Paul Felder the last time he fought a legitimate top 10 guy. So again, I love Charles Oliveira. He's fun to watch. I'm just not convinced of him. Anyways, I'd like to see that fight just because I think stylistically it's fun. You talked about Gillespie. He's ranked number 13. I don't know. I mean, Quinta, I think they've talked about a fight in the past. That could possibly be the fight. Quinta's a guy that needs to fight again soon. He hasn't fought in a while. Diego Ferreira needs to fight too. He probably wants a guy to win. Like, this division's got to get moving. Looking at it, it's kind of making me angry, to be honest, guys. Like, because Ferreira hasn't fought in a while, and Felder, a guy who I know he's talked about retirement, he's got to get back in. They got to pay him what he's worth and get him in their big fight. These guys got to fight. Oliveira's got to fight. Hopefully he gets healthy again. He got sick. That's why he pulled out the Dariush fight. But these guys got to fight again. So hopefully they get this division moving. They got to get that Conor fight book. It's not official yet. I don't understand what the issue is. They got to get that fight official. Fans want to see that fight. So get that official, guys. Like, pay these guys what they're worth. Gaethje or Poirier's out there tweeting that they're not giving him enough money. And I don't know what's going on with that fight, guys. But hopefully Conor and Poirier can get booked. And this division can just move on. And also Khabib, I love Khabib, but Dana White saying now they haven't stripped him of the belt. Like, make your decision, man. You can't let the whole division just be held up because he's not sure he wants to retire or not. I don't think that's fair to the rest of these guys. Anyways, there's a lot of news to get to. So here's another one. I saw this yesterday. Mark Munoz, he was tweeting about he's happy in retirement. Mark Munoz is 42 now. He hasn't fought since 2015. He actually won his last fight against Luke Barnett, a fight that I think everyone faded him there, and he looked actually pretty good, but hasn't fought in 5 years. Looked at his Instagram. He does not look like he's a middleweight anymore. He looked like a heavyweight these days. So I don't know. If he comes back, he'd be a light heavyweight, I guess. But, 42 years old, I don't know. I mean, especially in the UFC, I don't think that'd be a good idea. But there's other shows in the world. Like, ONE FC would be a good place for him, wouldn't it? Rising would be a good place for Mark Munoz. So if he doesn't want to fight again, I think there's a chance he could come back. From what I saw, there was some mostly negative remarks to this, but again, how many times do you see guys retire and then come back later on to fight? It happens all the time. Even guys will retire and miss 5 to 10 years and come back. I'm never convinced that MMA fighters retired. What else have we got here? There's a lot of news. Well, yeah, Paulo Costa's out here, guys, and he's been talking about the Whittaker fight. He says it's close to being booked. Whittaker didn't sound like he's totally in agreement with it. It seems like it's something the UFC wants to do, and I actually think the fight makes sense because it's the number 1 and 2 guys, right, in this division. And Paulo Costa right now, he obviously wants to get back in the win column and get back to a title shot. He looked terrible against Izzy, but who knows if he learned from that and can do better the next time. He just fought really weird in that fight. Whittaker, I mean, listen, the guy's saying now, he's like, you guys took me the wrong way. I actually want to fight Izzy. The comments he made after the fight with Contender, does he remember what he said? It didn't sound like he wanted to fight. He was like, I want to take some time with my family. And, when the UFC heard that, I feel like they just kind of were like, all right, he doesn't want to fight. We'll move the division on. And they booked Izzy against Blachowicz. And now Whittaker's like, I don't want to fight Izzy. But if he wants to fight Izzy again, he's going to probably have to wait a year to fight him. So to me, that was I don't know if he was totally thinking like clearly after that fight because the fight with Contender, he took a lot of damage in that fight, man. And I feel like those post-fight press conferences, guys aren't always there 100%. They get a week or two after the fight to recover. Then their true thoughts come out. A lot of us after that fight were like, he's the next guy in line, but he was the one who was like, I don't know about it. Now he's like, I want that fight. I'm not saying he screwed himself by any means because it looks like the UFC just wanted to give Izzy what he wanted. That's a shot at a second belt, but. Whittaker's going to have to fight again, man. He's going to have to stay busy, and I think Costa makes a lot of sense. It'd be a great fight. Now, here's actually what Eduardo asked. He said, thoughts on Wonderboy and Geoff Neal. Love this fight. So, Geoff Neal and Wonderboy, December 19th card, ESPN reported it, and Cole Shelton at BJPenn.com confirmed it's the co-main event. So, this headline got a lot of people riled up, which is hilarious. I love looking at the Facebook comments. A lot of people got riled up because it says he's added to the undercard, and people are like, it's your fault, Stephen Thompson. You should have taken the fight with Khamzat. Khamzat's the headliner, even though he's unranked, and Thompson's ranked number 5. So they kind of think that Thompson made a mistake, but I'm not so sure because here's the thing. Khamzat is unranked. We know that he's a big name right now, but really he only has 3 fights in the UFC. Leon Edwards, the fact he took that, it just shows what kind of balls he has because he's giving up his number 3 ranking and a potential title shot to fight a guy who is unranked and who doesn't have a huge name to the casual fans yet, but a guy that us hardcore fans know is incredible. So it's just funny, though, that the fans would actually be like all over Steven for turning down the fight. I think he made the right call. I mean, Geoff Neal is number 11 in the world. And Geoff Neal is an incredible fighter. And to beat Geoff Neal, to a lot of us fans that know who Geoff Neal is, that's a huge win. So this is a great fight. I love this fight, Eduardo. It's an amazing fight. The odds actually came out at one of the books, I think, in Europe this morning, and it was Thompson, I think, was like minus 130, Geoff Neal plus 100 or something like that. So really like competitive odds, which I actually kind of agree with. I think Thompson probably should be slightly favored. I honestly have no idea who I'm picking in that fight yet. Again, December 19th, we have a month and a half. I'm glad they got that fight booked, and that card's really shaping up nicely. Let's go through some other news here. Israel Adesanya, man, he was talking about this, the sworn pec muscle. Basically, he said he smokes too much weed, and after he said this, I had to check myself, but I didn't see what he was talking about. So I guess it just affects certain people, but I'm sure a lot of fans were kind of thinking like, what's he talking about? Now, one of my friends on in the MMA media, Chisanga Malata, his father, I believe, is a doctor, and he actually tweeted yesterday that this is true. And so I went and Googled it, and yes, there actually is something behind this where for a lot of people that do smoke weed, they do develop these swollen pecs. So it's not something that's completely made up, which surprised me because I thought it was just him almost trolling us. But there actually is something behind this. I can't remember the name of it, but I was reading about it last night. Luckily, it doesn't affect me, but a lot of my friends that I know that partake in the green once in a while. But maybe he's just smoking a ton of weed or something. Maybe he's smoking some bad weed, man. Maybe he's got to get some better stuff. Now, speaking of weed, because this is the perfect segue. The perfect segue. Niko Price suspended for marijuana use in Nevada. Right now, it's a provisional suspension, temporary, so we have no idea how long it's going to last for. But the other guys that were suspended got 4.5 months. Kevin Croom got suspended. And remember Kevin Croom? He got that win over Roosevelt Roberts on short notice. Lost his win, no contest, and he got fined. He got suspended 4.5 months. Also, this guy, Jose Flores, who was on Contender Series, he lost his fight to Jordan Levitt. He got suspended 4.5 months for marijuana use. And this other guy, Chad Johnson, who was on Contender Series, he got suspended for amphetamine, so a little bit different. He got 9 months. So obviously he got a harsher suspension. But still, the fact that these guys are getting suspended, guys, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. It's not fair. It's not right. Niko Price, come on. I mean, Niko Price is very open about the fact he's a stoner, and there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously he must have used too much. He must have went over the threshold, which in Nevada doesn't seem that high. It's just sad that Nevada seems to be the one state that really cracks down on it. I'm pretty sure it's legalized there, isn't it? Like, I live in Canada again. It's legalized here, guys. Seriously, like, you can go anywhere you want and buy weed. So it's different than, I guess, some places in the world. But in the States, a lot of these states are legalizing it, and they are legalized. So, Niko Price is the guy that probably has a license for it, if anything. It's just crazy to me. It always brings me back to that Nick Diaz fight with Takanori Gomi from 13 years ago in Pride, where he had that win by Gogoplata overturned to no contest because he smoked weed. And I remember the commissioner at the time was talking about how he used weed and he couldn't feel the pain and the damage, which is just ridiculous. These guys definitely use it for recovery, but I'm not convinced I'm not convinced Niko Price, smoked a blunt and then walked to the cage or hit a bull and walked to the cage. I'm not convinced by it at all. They probably use it during their training camps. And we know that a lot of fighters use marijuana. I just think it's ridiculous. It's 2020. It's 2020. Get with the times. Like, seriously, it's just sad that this commission is cracking down on marijuana use. It makes no sense. So now, yeah, you're going to take Price's draw away. It'll probably become a no contest, and you're going to find the kid, and he's going to lose money. He's going to lose time in his career because he smoked some weed. So stupid. This isn't the 1930s with reefer madness and stuff. It's 2020, so it makes no sense to me. Again, Dana White talked about this last night at the post-fight presser. Basically, his argument, and I agree with this, I've always said this, you can't have guys showing up high. You can't be smoking a bowl and then jumping in the cage. That's not what they want. So they definitely should be testing the night of, right? But the threshold needs to be raised because just because you have residual cannabinoids in your system like Price did, you shouldn't be losing time in your career because of that. So it's something I'm very passionate about. Obviously, guys, I think it's complete BS. Marijuana, I think when used properly can be a great tool, for a lot of people, especially MMA fighters. So to me, it's so antiquated and it's such archaic that it just blows my mind, that these guys are getting suspended and fined. Like, Price, he's going to lose that draw probably. It'll probably just be no contest. I guess Cerrone will keep the draw. The Bigfoot Hunt fight years ago, that was a draw, and then no contest just for Bigfoot. So maybe that's what's going to happen. But yeah, the fact that Kevin Croom lost his fight. And then again, a few weeks ago, Tim Elliott got suspended. A few other guys got suspended. Luis Pena got suspended. Trevin Jones got suspended for marijuana. Jamal Hill got suspended. He lost his fight. He lost his win against Clinton McGregor. He knocked him out in the first round and lost that. So it's terrible, guys. Honestly, it's a joke. And Dana White says they're still working on it to lower the restrictions and the thresholds, but I don't know. It just seems like something where in Nevada specifically, they were really cracked down on it. And also, Niko Price, second time he's tested positive for marijuana. So a guy that definitely likes to partake in the green, which, again, I don't have a problem with. Conor McGregor, I mean, you can click on the photo, but yeah, he's phenomenal shape, and hopefully that fight can be booked soon. Kevin Lee had this crazy tattoo, by the way. I don't know what he's thinking. I mean, Kevin Lee, come on, man. What is this? Well, I can't talk smack. It's someone else's body. They can do what they want with it, but I wouldn't want that on my head. Tito Ortiz, pretty awesome, eh? Huntington Beach City Council seats. So Tito Ortiz is part of the city council there. And you know what? A lot of people are talking shit about Tito and saying he's stupid and he's a dumb guy and stuff. I don't agree with that at all. Tito Ortiz, I respect him a lot, man. He's been in the game forever. He's been in the game for almost 30 years. A guy I respect a lot, and I know, again, he's not he's not a rocket scientist by any means. He's taking a few blows to the head, but I think, overall, from what I've seen, he does care about his community a lot, man. And I think he'll do a great job there. So I'm actually really happy for Tito. I know Dana White was talking a little smack, but I think that's pretty good. Izzy was talking about the GOAT, and he's like, no one talked about Demetrius Johnson, which I thought was interesting. I mean, DJ for a while, everyone was bringing him up. Like a few years ago, it was like DJ's the GOAT and stuff, but you don't hear his name much anymore. I think over time, once Cejudo beat him, and I think over time people kind of realized that, yes, he was winning a lot of these fights impressively, especially the one against Borg, amazing. But, the talent of flyweights not as good as some of the talent in the other divisions. I'm going to take this. Eduardo Flores. I think Cam's that winning would put Colby's plans for a future title shot in a difficult place. What are your thoughts? Here's my thoughts on that. I've said this a few times this week. I believe you're going to see Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal be the coaches on Ultimate Fighter. That's my prediction. I haven't really heard much, I'll be honest, but that's my prediction based on my knowledge of what has been talked about. And I think if that happened, the winner would be promised a title shot. That'd be my guess. If they agreed to do the show, the winner would be promised a title shot. But we really have no idea. Again, at this point. Eduardo Flores, since UFC 251, we have had a card every weekend until December. What are your thoughts on the pace of the cards UFC has had? Great question, man. I love the question. So, I love MMA. I love it, man. I absolutely love it. And I don't mind giving up Saturday night to watch the fights. I mean, it's something I enjoy doing. I'd rather watch the fights with my girlfriend and just chill than go out to a bar at this point in my life. When I was a little bit younger, maybe a little different early in my 20s, but I'm 32 now, and I'd much rather stay at home and watch UFC. So I have no problem with it. And I'll tell you, there was many times in the past where I complain if the card was weak, and I'm like, I want to go out tonight and stuff. But I'm not like that anymore because of the coronavirus pandemic. And when we were robbed of fights from March till May, I really developed a much greater appreciation of every the Saturday ritual every Saturday and what the UFC does. I mean, it's not easy to put on fight cards. So yes, I mean, a lot of people are criticizing some of the cards, and some of them aren't amazing by any means. Especially the one next week, it doesn't look that great. The one with RDA and Makhachev, but overall, guys, like I'm happy there are cards every weekend. I'll be honest, I'm happy. It gives you something to do. It gives you something you look forward to. So I'm fine with it, man. Yes, it's nice to have a break once in a while. I'd like that too, but I'm fine with it. There is a break coming up on the 26th and I think January 3rd too. So there are a couple of breaks coming up around Christmas and New Year's, but I expect it to be crazy next year too. For a long time, we always heard the UFC would be doing 50 plus cards a year, and I think that's what their plan is now, to do 50 plus cards. I mean, you probably want to do 52, but you need to have at least, I think, that Christmas weekend off. But yeah, again, and I think that's a great question. But for me, a guy who in the past was guilty of saying, hey, this card's not that great. I wish UFC gave us a week off. I'm not like that anymore, man. I'm really not. And I saw there's a journalist, Zane Simon at Bloody Elbow, and John Kavanagh had seen a comment he made from Zane, who said that the card next week basically is weak and he didn't really want to cover it. And I understand that, it's not easy to do this week in and week out, but I don't feel the same way about that at all. And, maybe John Kavanagh was a little harsh the way he called him out, because obviously Zane got just destroyed and piled on by John Kavanagh and Conor McGregor's fans. But, the comment he made maybe it definitely, I think, riled up a lot of people, because a lot these fighters, man, that's the thing. These fighters, they put everything on the line for their career and for entertainment. And yeah, some of these fights aren't amazing. These cards are incredible. I have no problem with it happening every weekend, especially when I'm not doing a lot else. Now, going down some other news here, we got Kevin Holland. He wants to fight 2 more times. This guy's crazy, man. I love him, though. But yeah, Travis Luer's his coach. He wants to fight him 2 more times in 2020. It's definitely possible for him to fight at least once more, I think, but twice seems a little bit excessive. But still, guy's fought 4 times in the last 5 months, so you got to respect that guy. Michael Chandler called out Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje. I think both those fights will be good ones. I'm not really sure if they're going to book it. Here's something I want to talk about. Santiago Ponzinbbio. He's returning to the octagon against Muslim Salikhov, so we'll get into the fight announcements now. And I'm excited to see him back, man. Santiago Ponzinbbio was a guy that was on a really nice roll here for a long time. This guy, I mean, overall, I mean, he's awesome. Pull up his Wikipedia. 27-3 record. That's a great record. That's an awesome record. UFC, he's 9-2. He did lose these 2 fights, Larkin and LaFleur, but since 2015 he hasn't lost. You look at some of the wins. Neil Magny knocked him out. But again, look at where he fought last. November 17, 2018. So hasn't fought in forever. But some of the wins he had before he took that break, Perry, Nelson, I mean, these were fights, some of them where people didn't expect him to win. He looked amazing. So I'm really high on Santiago Ponzinbbio, and he takes on this guy, Muslim Salikhov, who is really good too, man. And he's got amazing striking skills, 17-2 record. Again, the guy who lost his debut, and he does have 2 losses by submission, so clearly that the ground game is not his forte, but his striking is fantastic. I mean, you got the knockout power and the volume too. I mean, this fight was very close. He could have lost that fight, but I think it's a great fight. I love this matchup. Really good matchmaking here by the UFC. Putting that fight together. Let's see here. Well, and it was the Pantoja fight I wanted to talk about really quick here. Where is that? I'll go to Marcel's thing. They're a great follow here. So we got those 2 fights, and this is the other fight I want to talk about. Alexandre Pantoja against Beneil Cape. I like this fight a lot, guys. It's a very good fight. Alexandre Pantoja, an excellent flyweight, number 5 in the world. He's great. But this guy Cape, I'm very high on. I'm very high on this kid. You look at some of the wins he has. Kei Asakura, this is a really good fighter in Ryzen. Mitsugaki, a veteran in the UFC, and Ian McCall, a longtime veteran, finished those guys. So he is fantastic. Pantoja, obviously, very experienced on the octagon. He's fought the best in the world. He has some good wins. Reyes, Brand, Moreno, Machinel. You know, it's funny. Moreno's ranked number 2. Pantoja, I think, has beaten him twice, ranked number 5. So he's underrated. I like this guy a lot. This is a close fight, man. Honestly, very, very close fight. I expect really competitive odds. It might be Ona. I didn't take a look, but Pantoja probably going to be slightly favored due to the UFC experience, but definitely Cape's got a chance, and he's a little bit younger too, which is nice to see as well. What else did I miss here? I think I got everything I want to talk about, actually, guys. If anyone wants to throw any more last-second comments in there, please do. I'll take some last questions here before I get out of here. Double-check on BJ Penn, see what else I missed. Paige Van Zandt to make Super Bowl, to make BKFC debut in Super Bowl weekend. So if you're a Paige Van Zandt fan, there's some news there. Dana White didn't say much about Joe Biden. He just said he didn't say much. I mean, obviously he was pissed that his buddy lost. I told you guys Biden would win. It was my pick, but again, it doesn't really something that I'm not super concerned about. I haven't tweeted about it at all, by the way. I only tweet about MMA. Diego Sanchez, man, he was going crazy last night. He was tweeting like he was power tweeting, so he went nuts. I was like, hey Chris, he's going crazy here, and he starts calling out Connor and Cerrone, Maya Hardy, Dan Hardy. Those fights are okay. I mean, Dan Hardy would be a good fight. That'd be kind of a fun fight. Dan Hardy probably shouldn't fight again, but yeah, I think Cerrone and Maya would be good fights too. So any of those fights make sense. You know, Cole's mentioned this a few times, that Maya fight. Remember, Diego Sanchez has never been submitted in his career. Maybe Dan Maya can do it in his final fight, because I think he'll be retiring after that fight. That's it. I think I'm done, guys. I don't have anything else to talk about. So once again, everyone, really appreciate you guys joining me today for this edition of the MMAOB Daily Podcast. You guys can follow me on Twitter at MMAOB Podcast, MMAOddsbreaker.com. It's available on our YouTube channel, Spotify, iTunes, pretty much anywhere you can get your podcast. The podcast is available, so definitely check that out. I'm also available at bjpen.com and MMAratings.net. And of course, MMAOddsbreaker.com, as I showed you at the beginning of this podcast, all those articles I have up there and some of the other content we have at MMAOddsbreaker.com. Have an amazing weekend, guys. I hope you enjoy Bellator tonight and UFC on Saturday. And I'll be back on Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. to break down the next UFC card. Have a great weekend, guys. Talk soon. Bye.